Hello, hello, and welcome, Northern European astrologer, to a new lunar cycle. My name is Maggie Rose Cunningham. I am the founder of Magin Rose, which is dedicated to supporting people who want to go really deep into the spiritual practices of Northern Europe, and particularly the runes and shamanic practices, and working with astrology in order to get that deeper relationship with the cycles of time and space and with the runes as well. So this is what I like to do for myself. And I'm very excited that I've got a new camera so I can share this with you on my actual bullet journal for really feeling into the energy of the lunar cycle. So this is our new moon on March the 29th, and we're going all the way through to the new moon on April the 27th, 2025. And you'll see that I have already used my ruler to draw out a lovely, I've actually done 29 units here. You can use line paper. I like to use dotted paper. And I'm going to number these with the days so that I know what the days are. So I'm going to start on the 29th of March over here. I'm going to go the 30th and the 31st, and then the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and I'll keep on going. Now, if you are a member of Sinner Star Wheel, you, like some other cunning people, Lisa has already shared her version of this in the Half Space group, you will have all of the planetary movements that I'm going to take you through today for the full year ahead in your Sooner Star Wheel membership. And I think it could just be really nice to do this as a practical activity. There we go. So the 27th is just here. I find this is really nice to do this as a practical activity rather than just sort of seeing things on the screen, because it really helps you to tune in to the lunar cycle. So I'm going to start with our new moon over here. And you'll notice when I put the new moon in that I'm leaving a little bit of space. I'm not quite putting it in the center, and that's because we've got another planetary movement to fit in on the 29th. So that's just a little bit of a heads up there. And then we're going to have our full moon that we're going to put in on the 13th here. Now, again, we have two planetary movements on the 13th, so I'm just giving you a heads up. So I'm going to put my full moon in there. And then we're going to have our new moon at the end there. On the 27th, there'll be a new moon coming as well. And then I'm going to put in my waning moon and waxing moon phases. When the moon is half full, is here on the 5th. And I like to do that so I can divide the weeks up for myself. And then on the 20th, it will be half empty, is the way you might look at it, because it's the waning moon phase then. So that means that we've got our 4 weeks, there's a 28-day cycle. I'm going to put a little line in there as well, so just so that you can see that as well, so you can see that that works with the 4 weeks. Now, one of the other things that I quite like to do, because I think it just sort of helps me to digest, and also as I'm moving through the lunar cycle to remember where I am in the cycle, is I like to label the days of the week. So we're going to start on the here, Saturday, and then the Sunday. And we'll go through and do that. Now, what's really nice about this is that the Northern tradition is where the names of the days of the week come from. So they're actually sacred to the different deities. So Wednesday, for example, is Odin's day. Friday is Freya's day. Oh, what have I done there? I put my moon like that. That's why, because I put my full moon in there. So I've just slightly moved that out. Okay. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. Is that right at the end? Saturday, Sunday. Yes, that's right at the end. There we go. So you can put these at the top if you want to. I like to put them a little bit further down. My starting position is Saturday, each time that point from Saturday to Sunday. Okay, so as I've said, we've got our lunar phases, and I'm going to be starting with a new moon in Ehwaz. So Ehwaz up here is the rune of partnership. And we've got quite a strong Ehwaz current going through at the moment, with this sense of partnership and of speed as well. There's an intimacy, that desire for connection comes through really strongly with Ehwaz. But we've had a bit of a disrupted Ehwaz energy because Frigg's chariot and Odin's chariot are both currently on retreat. They both sort of moved into Ehwaz, and then they said, oh, I'm not quite ready to be in there, and then went back into Berkano, which is the rune before Ehwaz. So if you have experienced before this point, before we get to the new moon, any disruption in terms of relationships, perhaps relationships that you thought you could rely on, or partnerships that you were moving forward with, and then it went a bit pear-shaped, that's because the retreat energy happened during this Ehwaz period of time and went back into Berkano. But as the sun begins to lead into Luna's chariot, she's actually in Ehwaz at the moment, and then we've got a new moon in Ehwaz as well. That really resets that energy. So things that have felt difficult in terms of partnerships and connections will feel much, much better. Now, just before the new moon, when the sun changes and moves into Ehwaz, but also when this new moon energy hits. So all is not lost if you've been experiencing some challenges and problems. We're going to look a little bit at Odin's chariot and Frigg's chariot in a moment. So then the other lunar energy that we have is the full moon. So the full moon is in Wunjo. So here's our Wunjo rune. Wunjo is the rune of joy and friendship and family and belonging and ecstasy and poetry and all of the happy stuff. So it's a really great full moon. And I think we really need that. We really need that energy, that we're moving towards this sense of joy. And we'll come back to this when we come to the sun, because as I've said, there's a second planetary movement on the 13th, which is why my full moon line and things are a little bit off from the center of the 13th, because the sun is also going to move on that day, and she's going to move into Manaz, the rune of sovereignty. So we've got this double whammy of joy and happiness and also of personal sovereignty coming through during this lunar cycle. So I'm feeling quite positive, I have to say. Although Frigg and Odin both start off in retreat, and we'll mark them in a moment, there's lots to celebrate, lots to look at. So if you are new to the runes, you can look at my Elder Futhark pages on my website and find out all about the runes, because we're only doing a little mini exploration of each of them here. If you're a member of Star, well, obviously you can see all of the planetary movements, and you can see the oracles attached to each of these. You've also got your wild voice journaling sessions, which they are prompts so that you can sit down and I will talk you through with an audio, moving into a little bit of very gentle sort of trance state. And then we'll be drawing on the energy of Ehwaz as the new moon and Wunjo as the full moon to explore the themes that come up for you. So this is like a personal oracle that comes from your own wild voice, from your deep, authentic voice. And I have found the lunar cycles and working with the runes through the lunar cycles to be really, really powerful for this type of work. So don't forget that if you're already a member of Star, and if you're not, definitely have a think about it, because it's a brilliant way to really deepen your connection with the runes and with yourself, and your own power, your own magical being. So what we're going to do before we put in the rest of the runes is we're going to look at the starting positions of all of the planets, because not all of them move, obviously, every cycle. And this is actually quite a quiet cycle, which I quite like as well. And we get to deepen in a little bit more. So let's have a look at the sun. This is Suna's chariot. So we've done a little bit on the moon. The sun, Suna's chariot. So Suna Mani is the charioteer of the moon. Suna is his sister, or his sister was Sol, and Suna is her daughter, because they have a little bit of a double act going on, Sol and Suna. They like to collaborate. So Sunday is Suna's day, and she starts off in Ehwaz, as I've already said. So she's in the rune of partnership. So when she moved into the rune of partnership in the previous cycle, she started to bring in the positive energy of partnership, which might have been a little bit disrupted with Frigg and Odin. And then she is going to move again on the 13th. So this is why we needed to leave a little bit of space. There we go. There's Suna. That's a bit of a swirl there. And she is going to move into Manaz, the rune of sovereignty. Now, these runes, these sun runes, are really powerful to work with in two ways during what's often referred to as the half month, because the sun takes 2 weeks to move through each of the runes. So we have what are called the half months, and they're really powerful, for receiving the healing from that particular rune. So at the moment, the healing of partnership is really available with Suna. And then when she moves in on the 13th into Manas, then the rune of sovereignty, of personal power comes to the fore. Really, really great for personal healing work, because Suna amplifies the potency of the individual rune without adding what we might think about as like a little bit of an agenda. So Odin has an agenda. He has a sphere that he's working with, and so he harnesses the rune's energy in a particular way. Frigga does the same. All of the planets do the same. Suna is just like, I'm going to shine my light and bring my power to the rune, so it's really there and powerful. And the other thing that it's really useful for is if you know your sun rune, then you will have a 2-week period, obviously around the time of your birthday each year, when your power rune, your personal power rune, the rune that resonates with your soul essence, with your authentic self, is really available for you to work with. So that's a really oomphy time for your own personal healing. So that's the sun. So she's going to start off in Ehwaz. Now she does have another transit that she does. So Freya Aswin looked at the zodiac, and she said, okay, so I want to work within the Northern European tradition, so the zodiac doesn't work for me, but obviously people are used to working within the zodiac, so what can I do that's going to feel more authentic and supportive to me in connecting in a powerful way? And so she created the halls of the gods, and she assigned a different hall of the different gods to each of the symbols of the zodiac. So Suna starts off in Thor's hall, and I'm doing that as a little symbol there of Thor's hammer. You can see, so she starts off at the beginning of the month, she's in Thor's hall, and she will transition on the 19th. She will move, I'm going to put a little "her" for hall, so you know what that is, on the 19th. And she's going to transition into Skadi's hall. Now, this is my birth hall. My birth rune is Lagu's, which we haven't got to yet, but the halls span obviously a whole month, so they tend to have 2 or 3 runes assigned within them. And Skadi is a really interesting deity. When I sort of first felt into her, I was like, okay, I can feel that really powerful energy of I'm getting my own way. Like there's a stubbornness to Skadi. But I couldn't think, how does that work with Lagu's? She has been a fantastic teacher for me of how to work with my personal sun rune and to work with the water energy of Lagu's, and how to make sure that that's deeply grounded. She is a fiercely independent goddess. She's actually a giant who becomes a member of the Aesine, or a member of the sky gods, through her own like personal power and tenacity. So I really love her. Now I give her as a little symbol. I don't use the zodiac sort of symbols because I find it confusing. So I've made my own symbols. And you might go, oh, what's this? I give her literally a square like this, and I'll tell you why. Because she has this real stability and this real like immovable quality to her, but she's also a container. So for me, I think about the Lagu's energy. She brooks no nonsense. She uses the laws of the gods themselves, sort of almost like against them, to get what she requires. And for me, this very simple shape represents a throne. It represents her throne. Her father is killed by the gods, and she basically takes the gods on and claims her rightful place and then more, as recompense for what they've done. So she is to me a real goddess of sovereignty. And I didn't want to have a crown or something like that. I was like, no, Skadi is a primal force. She's a force of rock. So I see this as being like a cubed throne that she's sitting on here. So that's like my own little symbol there for Skadi. And again, if you're interested in the halls, you can look on my website, or there's a lot more information in Sinistara and also in my really deep dive program, Birth Rune Soul Journey. But just to start off, that's a helpful point for the halls. So Suna starts out in Thor's hall, which is the equivalent of Aries, and then she's going to move into Skadi's hall, which is the equivalent of Taurus, on the 19th. Okay, so then we have got Odin's chariot. Now I like to draw Odin's chariot. I use the symbol of Mercury, because we all know what that looks like, don't we, really? So it's easier. But I do a little dot in the middle to signify Odin's one eye, which I quite like. Now he starts off in Berkano, here, the rune of the divine feminine, yeah? But he starts off in retrograde. So I'm going to put that in a little bracket there. So he's starting off, he's moving backwards at the moment through the divine feminine. And the energy of the divine feminine is really powerful at the moment. Very, very potent. Frigga, Odin's consort, the queen of the gods, is also in Berkano, also in retrograde. There is a sense of, it doesn't feel disempowering to me, it feels like a requirement to adapt, you know? That part of what the divine feminine energy gives is that life force energy. Berkano is the rune of the birch tree, of life force, of the spring coming through. It's very, very potent at the spring equinox. Soon as Chariot is, she moves from Berkano into Ehwaz, very close to the new moon, just ahead of the new moon. And the spring equinox, or the autumn equinox for the you're in the southern hemisphere, is Berkano, and it is the rune of new life coming through. And it's that sort of sense of survival. And yes, we will adapt and we will change if we need to, that comes through. Now, this is really potentized, and I'm going to stop here because it's a really important point. We're going to come to Loki's chariot in a minute. Now, Loki's chariot shifted in the last lunar cycle, and he doesn't move very frequently, so this is a big shift. He moved into Berkano, and we're going to note him down in a moment. So we won't see his movement here because he's just moved. But as he moves, and I find this with all of the runes, that the most disruptive energies tend to come as the planet moves from one rune into another. So he's moving out of Ehwaz, the rune of the divine masculine, into Berkano, the rune of the divine feminine. There are a lot of legends that you may know about of Loki being able to shift across genders. He's a role model of adaptability and of being being sort of, what's the word I want to use? It's not fixed authenticity. It's not, this is what I am and I'm never going to change and this is my grounded everything identity. No, it's fluid. It's fluid and it's permeable. And he is a god of shape-shifting. And the Berkano rune, although it's a rune of the divine feminine, one of the rune poems actually specifically names Loki and talks about this idea of like camouflage and this idea of shape-shifting that comes through. So this is a very potent energy that's going to carry on long past this very powerful period of Berkano, really influence us to be able to shift our identities in a way that leads to greater authenticity and to recognize that being able to adapt and change and evolve our identities doesn't make us less authentic. We can move more and more deeply into who we are today. Who are you today? Loki asks. How can you embody that today? He brooks no, I feel uncomfortable with doing that, and I'm a bit fearful that people might think that I'm too big for my boots, or I'm trying to do this. He's like, no, this is your time to really embody what it is that you believe in and what you want moving forward. And we have this real blessing period of Berkano and the divine feminine. So we have Odin starts out in Berkano. Now, as I've said, Frigga also starts out in Berkano, and the fact that they're both on retreat suggests to me that there is a process of reclamation, and I believe that it is this reclamation because of Loki's chariot moving, and I'll put him in a moment. Because of Loki's chariot moving at the exact same point that they're here and they're in retrograde, this is about reclamation, and I think it is about reclamation of the fluidity of identity. And I think about that on the world stage, because Loki's chariot tends to deal with more collective human issues, whereas these tend to deal with individual issues. It is perhaps about us looking at what's happening out there in the world and saying, how do I individually step up to this? What is it that I might need to change? Where might I need to be more visible? And where might I need to be less visible in some cases as well? Loki doesn't have any judgments one way or the other. Berkano can be a rune of deep protection, like really protective of, particularly of children and the energy of innocence. But he's always like, pay attention. Pay attention to where you're hiding and whether the bit that you're hiding actually needs to be hidden or it needs to come out and be visible now. And what it is that truly needs to be protected. It's very much about values and how we embody our values, and recognizing that sometimes the things that we hide because we feel vulnerable, not because there's actually a good reason other than that we feel a bit nervous about it. So get over the nerves, absolutely, and then reserve your space of sanctuary, your space of innocence, space of safety for things that are still germinating, that you're still working on, for new things. Anything that you're being like, oh, I felt like this for ages, but I've not said anything. Or, this has been part of my identity for ages, but I've not said anything. He's saying that's time to bring that forward. Right? Allow the new parts of you the space to grow and explore, is what he's saying. So Odin and Frigga both gone and to find what it is that's been left behind in this space of Berkano, and then they're going to move back forward into partnership. The partnership, that ability for us to collaborate more with each other, to accept each other in all our fabulous differences, will then be blessed by the Ehwaz, by this period of moving into Ehwaz. It's a very powerful time for self-acceptance and then community acceptance. Okay, so let's look at Tyr. Here we go. So this is Tyr's chariot, which is the equivalent of Mars. So I'm going to symbol for Mars there so you can see what that one is. And he starts out in Feyu, and he will shift, and we'll look at that in a moment. Then we have Thor's chariot. So here's Thor's chariot. Oh, he's gone. Look at that. He was a really, really big symbol, doesn't he? He's just going to disrupt my lovely line of runes there. Oh, Thor. There we go. And he's in a Thala. He's in the rune of ancestry and inheritance. You remember I talked about this Berkano period and sort of going that Odin and Frigga have both gone back to try and retrieve something. A lot of that is going to be ancestral because of Thor holding that space. It might well be things that our families or our cultures have taught us to hide. Have taught us that might not be socially acceptable for whatever reasons, etc. It's sort of saying, actually, the time has come for change, for those wounds to be healed around what's allowed and what's not allowed. So Thor is holding that space, and he will stay in that space. He's not moving through the course of this cycle. Then we have Loki's chariot. So Loki, I'll do his symbol here. It's obviously the symbol for Saturn. Loki embodies the energy of the trickster, of freedom, the freedom of the trickster, but also constraint at the same time, of limitations. He sort of holds the gods to the fates that have been written for them as well. And I like to say that because sometimes people say, oh, that's a bit odd, why Saturn with Loki? But actually, it fits really beautifully. And he, as I have said, is already in Berkano. It's this really, really strong period of Berkano. And we'll do our big three. Here we go. So this is Uranus here. And you'll notice, so Uranus in Northern astrology is sacred to the Nornir, the three norns of fate. And you'll note, I find it quite pleasing that the symbol works so well for them. They are in Ingus, the seed of a new paradigm, a new world order. Now, all of the Largus energy of the wateriness and the possibility for change, that's done. We're already in the seeds have been sown already. Ages chariot, the deep sea, the god of the deep sea, of dream, possibilities, of the shared dream, is also in Berkano. So you can see how powerful the period of Berkano is. So if Berkano has always been a rune that you're like, oh, I'm quite interested in that one. I'm interested in the birch tree, new ideas, the divine feminine in all its many aspects, then now's a really good time to be looking into the Berkano rune. It's an uber powerful at the moment. You can go onto my YouTube channel and look at the videos there. You can do if you're awakened, you can do your Berkano modules, obviously, are all available for you to do there. And then finally, we have Hela's chariot. So Hela is the goddess of the underworld, not like the Christian hell. Place of very deep and profound healing in particular. And she's in Perthro. We're not going to talk about that today because this is a really big, powerful, important energy. Drop me a line if you're interested in the Perthro paradigm if you don't already know about it, and I'll let you know where you can find more information about that one. Okay, so this is the starting position for our planets, and I wanted you to see how many Berkanos are there now. So let's go back to our timeline here. So we've got our sun, and we have got our moon, and we've got our hall. So we're just going to put in the other movements, and there are very few, and the reason there are very few is because Odin and Frigg have both been on retreat. They've been in retrograde. This is Venus and Mercury. They're still, even though they're both going to come out of retreat, they have to make their way out of Berkano and then get into Ehwaz, and they're still sort of moving quite slowly now as they catch up. So that's why these movements are quite slow. The first movement that we've got in this first week happens on the same day as the new moon, and this is that Tyr is going to go into Uruz. So he spent quite a lot of time in Feyu, relationships with wealth, life force, abundance, all of those sorts of things have been quite challenging. He is really calling us to sort of step up. and to bring our warrior selves to issues around finances and wealth and health when it relates to energy levels, those sorts of things. So it could have been a really, really challenging period, but it was also a period where it was saying, take action. But that comes to an end now, and he moves into Uru's rune of willpower, of our relationship with nature. There is a real possibility of gathering strength from your relationship with nature and the world around you through this period of time. There's also, I believe, a sort of rebirthing of the warrior self through this period as well. So Uru's is well known as being the rune of the aurochs, which was hunted to extinction. Obviously, Tyr holding that space of the warrior, sort of martial energy with the planet of Mars, can offer so much in terms of his stories around the true spirit and nature of, we might not even call it the warrior, we might call it the activist. It's like if you were looking at a chessboard, it wouldn't be the king energy, but it might well be the knight energy. There's an ability there that does not require us necessarily to draw our swords within the modern world, to slaughter the aurochs in the modern world. It's saying, no, there is a totally new way for us to stand in our active masculine power through this. And I'm saying that as in the masculine that's available to everybody. And Tyr is leading the way with this for us right now. So the Uru's rune is a very powerful rune to work with if you're looking to draw on your personal power, and also really brilliant as a precursor into the full moon in Wunjo and the Suna's Chariot in Manas, this sort of sovereignty energy that's coming at the midpoint of the lunar cycle. Now, the only other things that we have going on are on the 7th. That is when Odin's chariot is going to move out of retrograde. Hooray! He's found what he needs, and he's coming back. And it will take him a little bit of time to get into Ehwaz, but he's making his way there. So that's sort of a period of time when that partnership energy, which has been quite challenging, will start to ease more. I've mentioned that it will already be in a better space because of Suno and the new moon, but it's really letting go now and moving into a more positive space. And then on the 14th, Frigga is also going to move out of retrograde then. I'm going to have a period of time with no planets in retrograde. Oh, very exciting. There we go. Okay, so we've got our sun in Manas, excellent. We've got our hall there. And then we have Odin. Will remember that he's got come out of retrograde. So he's in retrograde in Berkano, and then he's coming and he moves back into Ehwaz for now the positive. And I'm ready now for the positive partnerships. Bring them on, he says. And I'm totally ready to step into that now. Okay, and Frigga will be doing the same in the next lunar cycle. So that completes all of our planetary movements for this cycle. There are not many in comparison with sometimes because of Frigga and Odin being on retreat. We've only got like one main shifter with Tyr's Chariot, and we had a long period where many of the planets were in retrograde, didn't we, which we've come out of now. So we will have some more fast-paced movements coming. But this month is a really lovely month for really feeling into the Berkano energy and harnessing that, for doing healing work around partnership, leaving whatever needs to be left behind in the space of the divine feminine. The Berkano rune is like the womb, the rebirthing womb, but it's also the tomb. So actually literally say out loud, I'm letting go those relationships that don't serve me, and leave them in the Berkano space, so that when we move back as into the rune of partnership, you can do so from that positive space. Great time for stepping into personal power if you want to work with the Uru's rune, and then drawing on Suna's Chariot and Manas and the lovely, joyful Wunjo rune coming through for the full moon as well, remembering your wild voice meditation that you have. The other thing that I should say for Suna Star One members is that our story, the sacred story that I'm going to be sharing with you in your membership, is similar Dreams of the Earth Mothers. It's a really, really lovely channeled story about Orthumla, the primal cow, sort of first being, and her relationship with the Earth Mothers, which honors this Berkano energy too. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. So I hope that you've enjoyed going through this with me. Have a play, see what comes up for you. Let me know which runes are speaking to you at the moment, and which themes that I've discussed with you today are really resonating with you.